Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello, welcome to the RTÉ GAA Podcast. Mikey, Stafford here, and joined by Rory O'Neill as always, and this week by Ciaran, Whelan and Eamonn Fitzmaurice, the two lads having made it back from deepest, darkest Castlebar after their first TV outing. You seem to get on all right with each other, lads. There's, you know, the friendship is still there, even though we've thrown a couple of new lads at you. Wheelo, everything okay? Canavan wasn't causing trouble, was he?
No, everything fantastic. Nice venue to go to, I have to say, in Mayo. Well looked after. Great studio, halfway line. Really couldn't complain. Out of the rain, Mikey. You know what I mean? Like when you compare it to last year, having to go to Tralee and stand on the corner of the pitch and nearly end up being swept away. It was a joy, absolute joy, and we got a good match as well.
He's given out about Tralee, Eamonn.
Yeah, I can't defend the studio down there, to be fair.
The studio? You mean the great outdoors, the Atlantic seaboard?
Exactly.
I thought it might be a veiled jab at Rory. Actually, most of you probably won't know that Rory is having spent about half his life editing the Sunday game, either highlights or live shows, taking a step away from GAA on television so he can focus on the podcast. So I wasn't sure if Wheelo was having to go at Rory there and some of his production choices.
No, I wouldn't do that, Mikey. No, not at all.
All right, okay, I'll take your word for it. So anyway,
great start to the league. Great. Actually, in fairness, when you think of the intensity, lads, was just on another level. Like they were hopping off each other for like 1st of February, and you're kind of chatting to Lee Keegan and at the weekend you're saying like, God, you go back 20 years and you come back the 1st of February, and Eamonn, you probably remember it as well. I certainly do, when there was plenty bit of junk in the trunk and you'd be kind of gasping for air for 10 minutes and, chasing around some young lad trying to give him a clip. But, it was, the lads are just at a different level now in terms of professionalism, and their fitness and conditioning is just incredible, even if Galway probably weren't at the same level, but incredible intensity and a great start to the league.
Yeah. Hey, and obviously it's kind of unfolded as we expected, with Roscommon and Donegal top of the table after beating the last two All-Ireland champions. Just as we said in the preview, Rory, huh?
Yeah. We got it all spot on. But no, I 100%. I mean, look, I only watched the game on TV. It was a terrific game of football, open with some tempo. I mean, two quality goals, very different genres. Thunderbolt off the crossbar, and then the other one, the route one. There's something really special about a goal that goes in off a post. I don't know what it is. It just looks more spectacular. But big crowd under lights, a little bit of controversy, but the fitness levels, I think Wheelo's spot on. I mean, just to see the pace and the tempo with which the teams are now coming back into the early stages of the league is very, very impressive.
Certainly was. Couple of big issues to pick up on. That's sarcasm. But Wheelo, you might have noticed Kevin McStay, he's wearing a jacket over his Banished Door babe. I don't know if he's like, is that okay? Are you allowed to do that? Is he clearly identifiable?
Is somebody else wearing the Banished Door babe?
No, he was wearing it, but he had a coat on over it. I just thought, as a former army man, divil for detail, I just thought that he was chancing his arm there slightly. Now I think he'll have to start behaving himself on the sideline. Eamonn, you mentioned it. I think kind of Joe McQuillan and kind of some of the things he was picking up on. We always get it in the early rounds of the league. What do you think will be the rule infraction du jour for the league that the refs are going to be cracking down on?
Yeah, steps was definitely the feature of last weekend, but Brendan Cawley obviously didn't get that memo because he left Cillian O'Sullivan off with his goal where he took a good few steps. But there was a consistency across all the games that there was a bit of a focus on the overcarrying, which is probably no harm, because it probably had gone to ridiculous place in some regards. But I thought Joe McQuillan did well the last night. I have to say, I thought he had a good game, and he he got nearly all of the calls right. There might have been soft free or two towards the end, but that's always going to happen if you get a forward going at his man. He's often going to get the chance to get a free, but I thought he had a fine game in fairness to him.
I think Eamon, that certainly the Mayo crowd felt the last free that Galway got was a little soft, but there had been 2 or 3 tackles in the build-up. Galway were pressing, and there was 2 or 3 hard hits. So, and he let them go, and it was nearly like a cycle of he's eventually going to give them one now here. You know what I mean? And that's what unfolded, I think, in the end, because that last one definitely looked more like a slip. Kind of hand came in over the top, But
it was a slip. I thought in viewing at the time that their feet kind of came across each other, but you're right. Yeah, I'd say Owen Finnerty slipped, but Ryan O'Donoghue had got a soft enough one off the ball as well. Do you remember that soft one inside right in front of the goals? There didn't seem to be a huge pile of contact, so I thought it kind of balanced up overall.
Yeah, it did seem that way. And another, well, it's not even a rule; it's this perfectly legitimate wheeler, but it's one that grinds my gears. Is the fisted goal that has become a slap goal, which there was a lot of them over the weekend. And I wonder, when does a slap become a push? Because Jérôme Murtagh's goal, I don't know if you saw it, it was, in snooker he would have been called for a double contact, I think. So I'm just wondering, at what point does a slap become a push? Because I just think these goals, I just think they look really ugly. I don't think there's a whole lot of skill to them. I know there is in setting up the move and getting like the man open on the far side of the square, but the way they're finished, it's just, I don't know, it just doesn't look very satisfying to me. Maybe just from an aesthetic point of view.
To be honest, Mike, I don't really have a problem with it. I think, high ball coming into the square, traditionally you have to get something on it, whether that's a fist, a slap, a head, whatever you get on it, you try and get it direction of the goal. So not a big issue for me, to be honest with you.
Okay, fair enough. Anybody want to back me up on this one? No,
I like it.
I think it's your issue, Mikey. Get it checked out.
Yeah.
Thanks, lads. It's good to have you back. Right, we'll look at a couple of games here. I know you're all excited about Galway and Mayo because it was the one you're at, but I think the Donegal result does kind of stand out yesterday for a few reasons. Eamon, obviously, it's the All Ireland champions being beaten, even if they were down pretty much their entire forward line, etc. So I don't think anybody in Donegal was lighting bonfires last night or anything, but at the same time, given the off season they'd had, number of injuries they themselves have, and I guess the manner of it, with Paddy McBrearty's first score of the game coming deep in injury time, and it's an absolute peach to win it. So you could see why Paddy Carr was very happy afterwards. As I said, you're not going to be, no one's writing any kind of sagas off the back of the first round of the league, but it probably changes the narrative a bit for Donegal, which is exactly what a new manager needs, isn't it?
Yeah, and there appeared to be something in that, Mikey. Afterwards, his interview, he was a bit emotional. It was like that the work that he's done over the last couple of months has been validated, and that there was a lot of outside noise. Maybe there wasn't a huge amount of positivity around the appointment and the length of time it took and everything else. So there definitely was relief for Paddy Carr and Aidan O'Rourke and the management team. And sometimes, obviously, like you said, they're not going to get carried away. But when you get a big win like that in the first round, think back to Armagh last year, when you're kind of maybe looking for something, it can give you a bit of momentum. They were missing a lot of their big players as well, the likes of Michael Langan, Ciaran Thompson, Peadar Mogan, Owen Bon Gallagher, Ryan McHugh. They had a significant absentee list as well. And I think the huge thing was the debutants and how good Caolan McColgan was in particular, and also the wing forward Johnny McCrody as well. They both had great games, and it was a kind of a feature across the weekend that a lot of debutants did well for their counties. Robinson from Kildare was very good as well, and similarly some of the Mayo and Galway lads. But it was a huge win for Donegal, particularly if you'd asked me last week, I'd have given them a great shout, because I knew that Kerry were quite short. When I saw the Kerry team Friday night, it was an experienced side. Okay, they're still down some of their frontliners, but at the same time, Kerry 6 points up in the first half. looking pretty good, you would have said they would have fancied getting something out of it, and to come away and have to face that journey down with no point out of it would have been definitely disappointing for the Kerry lads.
Yeah, and Jack O'Connor had something to chew on anyway, Wheelo. There was one of the aforementioned McColgan's points in the first half was seemingly a yard wide. He saw it, the linesman saw it, everyone in the stand saw it, but the linesman didn't say anything to the umpire, and Jack was chalking it down to being the away team, and you don't get those decisions, but it shouldn't happen in Division 1. It is odd, if the linesman saw that it was wide, surely he would have communicated that to the referee and to the umpire, wouldn't he?
That's what you would think, Mikey, but linesmen, they operate in different ways, but certainly you could see Jack O'Connor was thick about it, very much so. After the match, he made it a point to go over to the referee, and he did confirm, I think, in his interview afterwards, that the linesman agreed with him. So you'd wonder why the linesman didn't intervene if he's a direct line to the referee. Having said that, was there one in the second half maybe that Kerry got that looked maybe equally as dodgy? It kind of pulled on the wind, and might have been.
That one, did look like it curled a lot.
Yeah, so it might have balanced out, but I'd agree with Eamonn that there was a bad vibe around Donegal, and a lot of people writing them off. And certainly after 15 minutes, when Kerry went 6 up and Dara Roach was moving well, Donegal were turning over the ball stupidly, carrying into the tackle. Obviously, Darren Moynihan got a fortunate enough goal, but you were thinking, that the vibe that was there was going to kind of flow through, and Donegal were going to kind of whimper out of the game. But you have to the character that they showed, and I think it's a massive win for them. The whole psychological shift change, if that bad vibe was around the county and a lot of disquiet over the late appointments and maybe what happened with Rory Cavan and that sort of stuff. So I thought they could take so much from it. For me, Caolan McColgan was the player of the weekend. I love to see a marauding right half back charging forward, kick 3 brilliant scores. I thought he was excellent, and you see a find like that, the positives they can take out of that. Conor O'Donnell, Dara Wheel, the half forward line, there's huge positives considering the people they're missing. We've always, the one thing when you look at Donegal, a lot of people writing them off the start of the year. I know Michael Murphy's gone, but they still have a lot of quality players, lads. They still have a lot of quality players, good age profile,
and a lot of quality to come back
through. Still a lot of potential there. So I couldn't understand where people were kind of writing them off, so early in the year without any sort of anything to judge them on, and not giving maybe the management a chance to lay out their stall and see what they could do.
Just the 2 subs made by Carr and Aidan O'Rourke, though, Rory, which suggests, that there's talent there, but the depth is only so deep, and, they'll want those lads who are out with various knocks, etc., back pretty quickly. And then the other point is, every one of these teams with serious ambitions, they have to build a squad because of the number of games they're playing, how intense it's going to be come early summer. So, in a way, maybe the result overrided everything for Paddy Carr. I could understand that, but in later games, even with those injuries, there's going to need to be blood and more than 2 substitutes per game, I'd say.
Big time. But that's what this league will do. Lee mentioned it on the podcast on Thursday that teams may target early games in the league to try and get points on the board, use the back end of the tournament to maybe inject a little more depth into the squad. And I think from Paddy Carr's point of view, he gave a very emotional interview to Des on the radio yesterday. I don't know if you heard it. And he made specific mention to Creeslaw and the obvious tragedy that's befallen that poor community up there. And, you could really sense in a radio context, given the fact that you couldn't actually see him, how emotional he was and how much it meant to him. And I think they'll take a little bit of heart. They have a very difficult task next weekend, but those 2 points are going to be very valuable to them now, given the fact that they're up and running. I think from a Kerry perspective, they were unlucky. I think they hit the post twice in the first 10 minutes, largely experimental side, some notable absentees, as we know. Gifted a handy goal now at the same time, as Wheelo mentioned, but fair play to Darren Moynihan, shows the value of pressing up. Conditions, always tough up there. You're kind of playing two different games, one with the wind, one without, really in Ballybuffet and certainly in January. But I thought Kerry, I mean, I was very impressed with Mike Breen. I think he will add a little bit of competition in that half back line. Is he going to unseat Obiog or Gavin White? Maybe not, but he certainly adds a little bit of competition. And Barry Sullivan in midfield, which may be I think from Kerry perspective, there's positions on that team that potentially up for grabs, and midfield is definitely one of them. Obviously with the exit of David Moran. But, look, I think Jack O'Connor will come away, I don't think, too unhappy with what he got from his team, certainly in the first half. Donegal, they have this uncanny ability to kick really difficult long-range scores. And if it's into a biting wind, it's nearly all the better. There was some incredible kicking. I mean, like really, really difficult stuff. Patton's kickouts are just extraordinary. I mean, if there's a better weapon in terms of a goalkeeper being able to basically lamp the ball into the opponent's half of the field, I don't know anyone else that can do that, maybe with the exception of Began. So I think overall, two teams that will have come out with, and they'll take different things. Donegal obviously now will take a huge amount of momentum from it, and you'd hope for their sake, if they get these players back, that they'll drive on. But I don't know if Kerry will be all that upset about it either.
No. Eamonn, as a former Kerry manager, again, it's a phrase we'll probably use a bit on this podcast. The first weekend of the league, you won't be hung for it, and
there's no crisis. There's no crisis in Kerry talk just yet.
Yeah, you won't be lauded too much for it. But at the same time, the amount of players there who are fighting for positions, a very small number of positions. If you count the first 15 from last August or last July as kind of the those in possession of the jersey. So there's a lot of competition there in Jack O'Connor. In a way, would you think he won't be in a rush to rush back those kind of A-listers or whatever you want to call them, because this competition's very healthy, and kind of let a little bit of a Hunger Games vibe seep into the squad might be no harm.
Well, the ideal situation that Jack would love is to be winning games with the younger players at the moment, because you're in control as the manager then, and the lads that are away in their bit of deserved sabbatical will be looking to come back. Whereas when it's the other way around, if you're losing games and you're looking out the door for the lads, it's a different dynamic and it's not ideal. But I think that Jack will be quite disappointed with yesterday, to be honest, Mikey. I think that obviously, like you said, first weekend, no panic, etc., of course, but just the fact that they put themselves in a position to win the game or definitely get something out of the game, and they didn't. And just that long journey down last night after a kind of a disappointing finish wouldn't be ideal. But of course, he's going to want lads to stand up, take their chances. In an ideal world, and Jim Gavin and Dublin were brilliant at this in their pomp, you're slipping in 2 or 3 guys together, giving them their chance, and they're playing with kind of 12 or 13 of the established team. Whereas if you're sticking in 9, 10 relatively inexperienced players together, it's hard to make an impression. Now, having said that, the starting team yesterday had a lot of experience. One of the teachers in the school here told me this morning that Ambrose O'Donovan, who does the colour on Radio Kerry, yeah, he said yesterday that all the talk this week was about fellas putting up their hands. Well, there's a lot of these fellas have to put their hands right down by their sides again. So there isn't much patience in Kerry, and the cracks start straight away. But within the camp, of course, there'll be no panic.
Jesus, tough crowd. We'll move on from poor under siege Kerry. So great result for Roscommon, Whelan, 3-11 to 1-12 win over Tyrone, and like leading at halftime. Tyrone came back into it in the third quarter, and then Roscommon scored 3 goals. There's no denying the turning point. Yeah, the introduction of Enda Smith, who he's just a phenomenal footballer, and I think as soon as he came into the game, Roscommon looked like a different team. Davy Burke, no offense to the county of my that I inhabit, Wicklow, but having come from being Wicklow manager, Kildare under 20, to come in as Roscommon manager and to have those forwards at your disposal, you must feel like a kid in a sweet shop sometimes, I'd say.
Yeah, again, massive win for him, and Roscommon probably been, I think, Rory, you might describe them as Norwich City or something like that last week. Again, probably been tipped for relegation, so it's a massive 2 points for them. And even Enda Smith, like his vision for the pass, for the goal, the second half was unbelievable to pick a player out. Made a massive impact coming off the bench. Tyrone, you felt once they got level, you felt they were going to kick on. They're playing with the wind, so great resolve showed from Roscommon and it's a bit of a setback for Tyrone, I'd say. They've a fair bit done pre-season, wanting to make an early statement. Probably one of the teams you would feel might have ambitions of pushing on and trying to win the league, and they need to get that confidence back. That was distinctly lacking last year. So fair play to Roscommon and Davy Burke. A great start, and I think that was one of the, I suppose, trends over the weekend to see. It's exciting times because there's so many new managers coming in, and some are going to get momentum and improve their teams, and some are going to struggle. But the likes of Davy Burke and Paddy Carr and Caolan O'Rourke, the victories yesterday for those counties, certainly makes going into training on Tuesday night, a bit of bounce around the place. And they look ahead to next weekend, think you get another 2 points in the bag. Where does it leave you? All of a sudden you're looking upwards rather than downwards. So yeah, big victory for Roscommon yesterday.
Yeah, and
the thing, sorry Mikey, as well, just kind of back up what Ciaran is saying, like the thing with a new manager, they shake it up. I just saw a quote from Davy Burke this morning, and he was on about the goals, and he said, who did the goals come from? 2 subs, Enda Smith and Ciaran Murta. Those two lads in their head might ask, why aren't they starting? It's competition, lads. So a new fella comes in and he shakes it up. I mean, nearly all of us would expect Enda Smith to be starting, and he reacted brilliantly when he came on, and like you said, a great pass for the goal. So that's the value of a new manager when it goes well, shaking it up, and there's just that severe competition within the squad, and it can get the best out of fellas.
The Tyrone, obviously, Rory, a couple of years ago got that bounce with the new managers, and they had their customary disastrous All-Ireland defence. But this, like Sean Kavanagh said it last night, he said this, like, Tyrone aren't in the same situation as Kerry or Donegal. This is pretty close to their full strength team, and you look at a full forward line of McShane, Donnelly and Canavan, and it's pretty exciting. But like it wasn't a team good enough to beat Roscommon away, despite kind of seeming to take the McKenna Cup pretty seriously. They're gonna, you think they're gonna miss Conor McKenna, and just for a county with such a vibrant club scene, you would think, Sean Kavanagh is not saying, oh well, there's an X, Y, and Z to come in. It's kind of like, well, no, this is it, and it does seem like they might need a little bit of a little bit of a refresh. That competition that we're talking about with Roscommon.
Yeah, but there's a couple of caveats that you probably have to attach to Tyrone, which you'd only hope are there for their sake, is that familiarity breeds contempt. They've come out of a McKenna Cup. They're now gone into a Division 1 league campaign, which is effectively like a mini Ulster league with 4 Ulster teams in there. And then they'll face into an Ulster Championship after that, before they obviously go into the Sam Maguire. Now, at this stage, they obviously know what are they going to be judged on. I mentioned this last week. It will be their championship performances at the end of the year. And I wouldn't, you just hope for their sake they're in the midst of a very heavy block of training, which may suggest and hint at some of the lethargy that crept into their play yesterday when they got on top and allowed Roscommon to get back into the game. They've had a couple of big, very notable absentees as well. Lads retiring, obviously Conor McKenna going back to Australia to give that another go. And they, as Sean Kavanagh mentioned last night, they're not missing a huge amount in terms of the players that they would ordinarily have. So the only other thing that you could maybe suggest is that there's just heavy legs going on at the minute, which might have resulted in the performance that we saw, certainly in the second half. But I wouldn't be overly worried either. Like Sean mentioned last night that he's very, very worried. I think taking an absolutist position on any team or any performance or any result at this time of the year is a fool's errand. and there's plenty of football left in the year for Tyrone yet.
Okay, that's this week's RTÉ GAA podcast. We'll chat to you again next week. No, no, I take your point, and like we have been saying, it is the first round of the league.
And it was a fantastic first round. I should mention that as well. I mean, some of the football we saw across certainly all three leagues anyway that I saw, like fantastic, like a really good open start.
So we'll get on to Saturday night in Castlebar then. We'll discuss it briefly. We've already kind of chatted about it. Eamonn, yourself and Wheelo were both there. To my expert junior BI, I just thought this, obviously beforehand we were being told, Kevin McStay, Lee Keegan said it here last week, said Kevin McStay, he's going to look to he'll want the ball kicked. He won't, will kind of turn away from the running game, probably partly because himself and Mullen aren't there, obviously, etc. But I got the impression that Mayo were getting the ball in all right, but it was getting in there before they kind of had their attack set, so the ball was going in quickly. But oftentimes it was then being worked back out again. It was almost as if they had the plan to kick it in long, but they hadn't actually developed the second step of the plan. And now, obviously, again, first week, I'm sure they'll build on that. But it did seem that the intent was there, but perhaps the structure wasn't there to exploit it.
Yeah, it's debatable, definitely, Mikey, whether there is going to be this huge kicking element to their game. They did. Ryan O'Donoghue got a good point in the first half from a ball kicked inside from Jordan Flynn. But outside of that, there wasn't a huge pile of kicking from Mayo. John Daly was sitting inside in the middle of the D the whole time. He was taking away obvious kicks inside there. But what I felt looking at the game was they weren't even looking to kick it really in the middle third. They weren't looking to kick it inside fast. Whether that was just they aren't used to it yet, or whether it was a tactical decision they made, I'm not sure. When Aidan O'Shea came on, Matthew Rowan got the black card almost immediately, so we didn't get much of a chance to have a look at him inside there, even though he was in and out and he was showing for ball inside there. Again, I didn't see the Mayo lads looking inside and really actively looking to kick the ball into him. So if it's a work in progress, there's a good bit of work to be done in it. I think that the way they set up defensively as well, they got an awful lot of bodies back behind the ball out of possession when Galway were building slowly, and they just didn't have the structure to kick then. There was no one to kick the ball to, so they had to run the ball a bit then, and there was a few kicks for the sake of it. But I wonder, are we all overestimating the appetite for Mayo to kick the ball? Is it a bit more of the same at the moment, and maybe as the season's going on, they'll add elements to it, whereas I certainly didn't see the same sea change that was there for Meath yesterday against Cork, where it was clear they were actively kicking the ball from all over the field. So I'm not sure if we're overselling it a bit, Mikey, maybe.
Yeah, perhaps. At the back, Wheelo, obviously they've lost a couple of kind of big figures. They had a rookie goalkeeper as well, a debutant goalkeeper, who probably wasn't helped by the fact that the corner forward was marking Matthew Tierney when that ball dropped in. But which is in itself was a sign that that there's definitely things to be worked on in the Mayo defence, which has been, of course, like their main building block in years. Like the Mayo defence has been kind of, it's been their foundation and also the starting point for their attacks. And it seems there's a lot there for Kevin to work on. There seems to be a lot of promise, but this is definitely kind of this is a project that we're not going to see come to fruition in week 2, 3, or even 4 of the league, are we?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're not going to see radical change, and they can't change all aspects of the game so quickly. And probably there's no doubt Mayo are targeting the first 3 or 4 games to get a performance and try and get results. I think they've Armagh, Tyrone, Kerry, they've a tough start to the league, and I wasn't expecting to see radical change, being honest. Definitely, you could see in the first half they're definitely dropping off a lot more, not playing with maybe the high press, and they try to squeeze go in the middle third in the first half, and trying to get a rotating sweeper plus one back when the opportune time arrives. I thought in the second half they sat a little deeper, and I felt in the second half that their their old DNA kind of kicked in, where they ran the ball a lot more, and it was quite effective. It looked like they could breach Galway a little bit more effectively that way, and maybe that was something they consciously made a decision to do. They adapted the conditions because they looked quite dangerous when they done that. So I think it's like everything, Mikey. You have to, it's grand saying, yeah, we're going to implement a kicking game, but who are you kicking it to? Sometimes, and have the ability to win that ball. Is it the type of player? Is it a Damien Comer, or is it somebody in there that's going to win, that it's going to stick? So I think, listen, they're work in progress. It was very hard to really identify any big significant pattern change at the weekend. I think Galway are going to be in good shape, lads. I think Galway are going to be a serious outfit. I would think Pádraig Joyce went home very, very happy. Obviously, they nearly stole it, and they'd be probably a little miffed they didn't get the 2 points. But Galway definitely fatigued, and you could see they didn't have the same amount of work done in the second half. And if you break down, like, they didn't play particularly well, but still got out with a point. And if you look at the forward line, obviously Rob Finnerty went off. Damien Comer definitely tired, even though Dave McBride done a reasonably good job on him. Burke Ian Burke obviously didn't play. Peter Cook made a big contribution.
Cook was very impressive, wasn't he? I thought he was everywhere.
He came in, you're going to have, I said, Ian Burke to come back, the likes of Tom O'Culhan to come back, Shane Walsh to come back. They've got a good bit of depth in that forward line. They've a very strong, obviously, midfield, and again, Conroy probably faded a bit, and Cillian McDade was heavily banned. I think they just haven't got maybe the work in the legs, but I think defensively they would have been very happy with Owen Kelly, Neil Mulcahy. They have to find maybe a couple of defenders with Silke Malloy out. So I think Galway will be very happy with that performance, considering where they are at. And you could definitely see that the point meant a lot more to Mayo because they dug it out of the fire. But for me, Galway, just in terms of the quality they have and how they're going to improve as the year goes on, I think they're a couple of notches ahead of Mayo at the moment.
Yeah, and Rory, the kind of probably what was the talking point with Galway the whole way through the championship last year was probably goalkeeper position and kickouts, and that's something the Mayo target, and every team is going to target that. So if nothing else, Pádraig Joyce is going to have plenty of time to work on the kick-out strategy, because it's it is an area, I think, where the opposition are going to be looking at Galway as a point of weakness.
Well, I think, Eamonn, did you mention in your piece for the Examiner this morning, or was it yesterday morning, this morning, that he has this short one that he gets away now, and he gets it away pretty comfortably. But I think, look, it's time to pick and stick. From a goalkeeper's perspective, he has chopped and changed quite a bit. Looks like Gleeson is the man. I mean, I don't necessarily think his distribution was his major flaw. I mean, if you go back to the championship last year, he did get caught a number of times with just simple route ones, but they can catch an awful lot of goalkeepers depending on the quality of the ball that goes in. I think Wheelo's spot on. I think Galway are in a very, very healthy place. Adding that little bit of depth, having the likes of Peter Cook and Ian Burke to come back into the mix is really, a lot. Now, look, it offsets, I suppose, the loss of Silke and Malloy. But I thought Sean Kelly was immense again. Great leadership there. They're much more economical in possession. I'd suggest, like, they're very, very clinical up front. You don't see them. They're almost Dublin-esque once they get the ball into a scoring position. When Dublin were at their peak and at their pomp, their shot to percentage ratio, I'd imagine, is quite high without having the facts or figures in front of me. And I'd say they're building really well, and I'm in for a big year.
Yeah, I won't tip him to win the All Ireland just yet, Eamon. I'll just give him another couple of weeks. Just let me get a sense of it. Speaking of goalkeepers, Eamon, it was an interesting game at Buffin Castle. Blaney, Ethan Rafferty and Rory Beggan both had moments to forget, and moments that kind of stamp them out as what they are. Beggan is a goalkeeper turned attacker, and Rafferty is an attacker turned goalkeeper, and it was a little bit hard to tell which was which the other night for a time, but it looked like a very entertaining game of football, and Armagh do look like a team who are taking the league seriously to an extent. Are they? Hard to tell. I think so.
Yeah, no, I think all teams are, Mikey, to be honest about it. Like Rory mentioned it earlier, I don't know what way the season is going to pan out. Our team's going to go hard early and pull the handbrake a bit as championship comes into view. Or could teams stay going hard for the league, take a bit of a suss during the provincial championships if you have your kind of guaranteed, if you're the top half of Division 1 and you don't really need to get into a provincial final? Could the provincial final be the possible block of training to get ready for the group stages and go from there then? So
that's where Kerry have the big advantage.
So, is there need for that health warning about the first weekend or the last weekend in January, and they're picking at the Kerry in the Munster Championship already? But yeah, thanks to that.
Because the Leinster Championship is an absolute bear pit.
Yeah, the Leinster Championship not much better. You won't have Jack O'Connor complaining about the lack of games this year. He'd be happy to take his little breather in Munster, I'd say.
Yeah, I missed the thing where the Leinster Championship had developed into a monster like the Ulster Championship. So Armagh are taking it seriously, of course, Mikey, and they're it's unlike Rory begging to make 2 mistakes in a row with the sharp kick out, and he probably should have saved the goal shot like that. It looked like he had it saved and he was trying to pat it down to himself or something. But what I'd be more worried about for Monaghan was the fact that Fergal Kelly got a hamstring injury in the warm-up, and then Jack McCarran got a hamstring injury in the first minute of the game. So you'd be questioning, is there something S&C wise or something in terms of their volume or training or something going on there, because it's not ideal to get 2 soft tissue injuries like that. And down Conor McManus and the Hugheses already. Jack McCarran now probably out for next weekend for a trip to Kerry. It's a tough start for Monaghan straight away.
Yeah. It'll be one to watch. I think we were on to Monaghan today, and they're not too concerned about McCarran. It doesn't seem to be anything too major, which is good, because any kind of a block of weeks now at this time of year is because the season is so condensed. We'll spin on quickly to Division 2, where Dublin are obviously operating this year, and lucky to get the win, Whelan, let's be honest. It was probably closer than they wanted, seeing as the last time they played Kildare in that venue, it was 5-17 to 1-15. So a little bit of dirty diesel to be burned off by Desi's boys, I think, is there?
You've taken the words straight out of my mouth. I was going to say there was a lot of dirty diesel probably from Dublin. Now, you got to, suppose, put in context, they didn't field any of those players in the pre-season competition. So it's first night out, really, very few games under the belt. So, but they went with a strong enough team. But definitely, a lot of rustiness there, kind of caught flat-footed in defence a few times. Credit to Kildare. I think Eamonn touched on the likes of Jack Robinson was very, very lively, and when he ran at Dublin, he caused them all sorts of problems and kicked a good few scores. I thought Dublin's counter-attacking was good at times, but obviously it was the final third was where they really fell down. I think they 30 chances in front of goal, and some of the shot options and decision making was really, really poor, and I'm sure that's something that Desi's they'll focus in on. But I put a lot of it down to sheer rustiness and lack of game time. Kildare probably be disappointed they didn't take the opportunity while it was there, and get something out of the game. You got a sense when Fenton's goal went in that Dublin were going to kick on, but they didn't, and they just barely got over the line. But there's positives from Kildare's perspective to take from the game as well, and they look to kick on now against Cork next week. But Dublin will get better. They will get better. As I said, just getting rid of that 30 days. I'm liking.
Speaking of Cork, Rory, that was like a bit of a clinker down there in Páirc Uí Chaoimh yesterday, and wondering what we would get from Caolan O'Rourke's Meath. Goals is what we're going to get from Caolan O'Rourke's Meath. Should we be surprised?
Not really. I think there. What's that? I thought Meath again. Shane Walsh was the story really from a Meath perspective. Superb player. Obviously had a very serious injury there and was out for a few years. So he's a massive plus for them coming back in. Cork couldn't get a handle on him at all. And they kicked, as Whelan mentioned earlier. I mean, the kicking was it Eamonn? They were spraying balls all over the field. It was very impressive to watch at times. Now, they didn't get their first point on the board until the 16th minute. They started quite slowly. Cork started quickly. But it's a huge fill-up, because I'd say it was a game that John Cleary probably targeted. I mean, given Cork's run of fixtures after this, they might struggle now to put points on the board. But I saw people describe it as a shambles from Cork. I mean, I wouldn't be going that far now either. I don't think there'd be any panic really. You've got to bear in mind the two Cork universities are deep in Sigerson territory at the minute. They were all playing during the week, and they're playing again this Tuesday and Wednesday. And I think there's 14 of the panel involved across UCC and MTU. So I don't know if there's any other intercounty team that would have that many players attached to Sigerson football at this time of the year. Then you throw into the mix Caolan O'Mahony, who is obviously heavily involved with his club hurling, because he plays junior hurling with Ballygiblin. They won the All-Ireland junior title. He'd probably be Cork's most dangerous and certainly most potential forward. So he hasn't really had the kind of off season that everybody is making it out. And but it was still disappointing. I mean, they put 19 scores on the board and lost the game. I don't think you can make all the excuses that you want. I think it probably goes back to cliche territory. You don't become a bad team overnight. And I think from Cork's perspective, the opposite is the case. You don't become a good team overnight either. I think they're very much a work in progress. And I think they just need to put the head down, keep building, trying up their fitness levels, faded again in the last 20 minutes, which seems to be a persistent affliction for them. But there are signs of improvement, I would suggest.
Rory, I think they're the biggest challenge for them now, because I think yesterday's game was a significant result, because you would expect Cork and Meath had ambitions to be on the coattails maybe of Dublin and Derry, and being pushing for like they have to go to Kildare next week.
Yeah. Having like even in their pomp, they would have like always come. You know?
Kildare generally very good at home, and then they've Dublin coming down in round 3. You know, so it changes the dynamic. You know, that one result can change the whole dynamic for them, and so it could be challenging a couple of weeks for them.
Yeah, and interested to know, Eamonn, after it's been kind of a problem position for me for a few years, was goalkeeper Harry Hogan. From the highlights last night, at least, made a couple of excellent saves, as did Micheál Martin. Micheál Martin made one double save that was phenomenal. It just seemed to be a game with a lot of goal-mouth action. Just exactly what you want, really. But the Shane Walsh, who got 1-2 from play, I think, as an inside forward for me, looks very promising. So Colin O'Rourke having said there's no players that Meath haven't unearthed, you know, when he was in the punditry chair, he said everybody who is possibly could be tried out is being tried out. So obviously he's either gone back to the well or he's been creating footballers in a lab. But there's some, you know, there's positivity there for Meath, who haven't had a great deal of positivity of late.
No, big time, Mikey, and I think that Colm organised those trial games, those regional trial games before Christmas, and it was about looking at basically every single player in the county. And I think there's talk within Meath itself about having a couple of North Meath defenders involved is important, and it's a kind of a traditional thing. But look, to be fair to Colm, we know what he's going to bring in terms of his organisation, his experience, his philosophy around the game, his confidence, his personality. That's going to improve a setup. But getting a big result like that yesterday, I think, like with Cork, to be fair to them, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Rory. I think part of the fatigue thing is coming down to their style of football and the running game, that is a very wearing game to keep going for 70 plus minutes. And the other thing that I think I saw Paddy Kelly mentioning it as well this morning in the Examiner is Sean Powter's positioning. You know, that he's playing centre forward, and I absolutely get why they're putting him there because of the punch he gives. But last year, I think
he was very effective in that sweeper role, Eamonn. I couldn't understand that for the life of me at all yesterday. Sorry, go on.
Like last year in the league, they conceded 9 goals during the course of the league, and he was missing for a lot of that. And then he played as that sweeper against Kerry and Dublin, and they didn't concede a goal. He was very good in the championship in that position. So that's possibly something they'll look at. But certainly from Meath's perspective, Mikey, it was a very positive start, and good to see the style they're playing and everything else. Where I think that'll get interesting, Cork facilitated that style yesterday with the way they played as well. But if you're coming up against a Lout, for example, that are going to play a lot of bodies back, are they going to be able to kick it as much? Are they going to be able to play that game? And when they're not allowed to do that, then what are they going to look like then? But definitely a positive start. And like you said, Hogan in goals is good. Early on, his kick out wasn't working as well as he would have liked, but he settled into it. And for a fella in his first day out, he certainly performed very well as the game went on.
Yeah. Just to finish then, Whelan, just the other notable results were in Division 2.
Wexford in London, was it, Mikey? Maybe you want to talk about that yourself, do you?
No, I don't. I didn't see it. And
London are the bolter.
My man at the ground had very uncomplimentary things to say. My dad, he was. I wouldn't repeat them on the national airwaves. He's not expecting too much from 2023. No, just sticking with Division 3. Derry handing Limerick an unmerciful beating. As expected, Derry going bullheaded to secure the promotion they probably thought they should have got last year, and then Clare absolutely digging it out of the fire at home against Louth. It's just to say, Wheelo, that Derry and Dublin may be everybody's favourites to gain promotion here, but it's going to be, I think Division 2 is going to be absolutely enthralling with, as it should be, so many teams on a very similar level.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And obviously, I listened to Derry on the way down to Castlebar, and by all means they're flying fit. They've a lot of work done, and he has pushed them fairly hard. And they're obviously trying to evolve to the next level, and it seems to be their model is to be able to play with a very, very aggressive high press when required, but also to be able to drop deep as well. So a very demanding game plan. I actually was sitting in the car, and I actually was genuinely feeling sorry for Ethan Doherty and Conor Glass for having to play, and play the full game. And you were thinking, I was struggling to get my head around that one, considering there's 13 or 17 games possibly over 21 weeks. Do you know what I mean, or whatever it is, the number of games we have in the next 6 months, and you just wonder mentally, do those guys just need a break after a difficult week, no doubt. But Derry are gonna, I'd say for Rory Gallagher, it's the winning habit. They want to get back to Division 1. They want to win Ulster Championship. They'll be gung ho for everything, I think. But it'd be just interesting to see, can they adapt? I don't think the test of Limerick is something to be benchmarking them on. It was obviously a good win. They got the job done, but you would have expected them to get the job done, I think. The other side, Clare, big win for Clare. We're behind yesterday. They dug it out of the fire in the last couple of minutes, and that's a crucial game against Louth, because like Meath and Cork, probably at the same level, and to dig that one out coming from behind because they were down early on in the game, that was a massive win for Clare yesterday.
Yeah, huge. And just to mention then, Division 3 wins for Fermanagh Offaly down in Cavan, and Division 4 big win for Leitrim, win for Laois, draws between London, Wexford, Carlow, Wicklow, and Sligo and Waterford lost. So for those keeping track of our former colleagues, a draw for Kevin, a draw for Oisín, a defeat for Desi, and a win for Colm. So we'll check in on the lads every now and again and see if we can convince some of them to come on and tell us how much more they're enjoying life on the other side of the ditch. But we're very glad to have you, Eamonn, and you, Ciaran, that you haven't jumped the ditch.
How the lads will be enjoying it will be purely based on results, Mikey.
Exactly. That's what we keep on. I'd say Colm's having the time of his life this week. The others, maybe a bit less so. Anyway, myself and Rory will be back on Thursday to preview round 2 of the Football League and round 1 of that most significant of competitions, the Allianz Hurling League, where every result and every match really, really matters. Honestly, tune in, we'll tell you, we'll prove it. Okay, we will chat to you on Thursday. Thank you very much to the lads. Good luck. Goodbye.
Crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it.